Accountability Chair. I am honored to turn the speaking over to Ari Coppolo, MKP Mid-Atlantic Area Founding Father.
Thank you, Tom, for those kind words. One of the things that's beneficial when they bring out us old fogies is we get to tell you a little bit about some of the early rituals and customs that started with this community. You're going to see men in this room here, several of them. Jim, for example, is wearing a gold sash representing the first center director. I'm wearing a black one representing the third. Robert, are you wearing your white sash representing the fourth? Each of those stand for the archetypes as we go around the medicine circle. Now, in this collection, we have in the very, very, very bottom, you can see a tiny thread of a silver banner, which represented the men who were here before we had a center. So the first color banner was the yellow one, but the very, very first one is the silver one, which represents all the men who preceded the founding, the actual first training we had here in Washington. So it's interesting, again, every one of you in this room has one of these colors represents your training if you went through Washington. The other thing they gave us as center directors was our own, this is called a thigmatrope stick, Moses stick. And that is actually the same as our official center staff. These are found on trees in this area. You just have to look for them. But they're found on the vines. And it's quite appropriate that we have as our staff a stick from this area that represents something magical. Does anybody know the address of Claymont Court?
667 Road.
Great Barn Road.
6677.
Okay, that's one of the addresses.
You would
of
drive.
Claymont. So I'm going to share with you something that I've written in honor of tonight, which I call the Claymont Address. 108 years ago, our founding fathers brought forth in the nation's capital a new warrior training center, conceived in the midst of great strife and dedicated to the proposition that each man should have an opportunity to face his shadow. Now we are met to celebrate the 25th anniversary of that first new warrior training adventure training, and our founders and pioneers who have given their time, their resources, and their passion to bring about this community and bring it into existence. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. But in a larger sense, we cannot recognize, we cannot celebrate, we cannot adequately honor these men for what they have made possible for all present and for future generations of warriors is a gift far above our poor power to add or detract. The world will little note nor long remember what we say here, but can never forget what they have done here. It is rather for us, the present members of the Mankind Project of the Mid-Atlantic region, to dedicate ourselves to the unfinished work which the founders and pioneers have thus far so nobly advanced. And that this community shall have a new birth of spirit, that its commitment to holding its members accountable with no shame and open heart to support each man's mission, and that this community and the work it does shall not perish from the earth. And if you agree, stand and say, ho!
Ho!
Ho! Now I'd like to introduce, originally there were the 5 founding fathers who met in Washington in the fall of 1990 with a decision: we're going to bring the New Warrior Training Adventure to Washington. And from that moment, everything that we did was aimed at that, be it training, getting more men to go, getting a critical mass, thrashing over leadership issues. There were 5 men: Ed Honnold, Ken Stacy, Ron Adolph, and Maurice White, if you would stand. And myself. We were the 5. And then after us were the pioneers. They were the ones who really made the community possible. The 5 of us certainly couldn't do anything. First man who came after us was Doug Juke. The next man was Joe Mancini. Would stand, Joe? Then we had Rob Skuka, Joseph McCaleb, Jeff Payne, Richard Menges, John Whalen, Jim Underwood.
Oh. Hey.
Jim, as I said, was the first center director, and I am deeply thankful to him that he took on that role and faced the grief that I might otherwise have faced if I had been in that role. So I thank you dearly for you assuming that very hard and difficult task of really making our first training possible. So thank you, Jim.
Thank you. Very different energy than back in March of.
That's true. That's true. That's right.
I'm sure when I have a wider perspective on life. All of that. Okay, and then Peter Kelsey.
Thank you, all right. Bye. All right, thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Peter Kelsey, Gabriel Hellig, Stuart Henderson, Richard Radermach. And then we had Bill Williams, Rosario Escarato, Andrew Sparber, Bob Rule, Ken Marks. If any of these men are here, let me know. I did not see them. And Dante Kenny. Dante was the spiritual magician who made everything, set the setting so that the magic could occur. Everything from the great sword to the walls that surrounded our training sessions. All of this, plus much creativity and wisdom, came from Dante. In addition, we had Forrest Craver, Amnon Freed, Tom Casario, Jeff Duval, Kirk Balcom. There are a couple of men who came in sort of almost as a transition group. In my role of introducing the pioneers, I've decided to claim them, even though officially they might not really be considered truly the pioneers, but how could we not acknowledge Curtis Mitchell?
Yes, yes, yes.
And again, although not quite a pioneer, we certainly need to acknowledge Robert.
Yes.
Yes.
And I'm making sure I have not left out anyone in that early group. George Andrews, is he here? Andriadakis. He also was in that transition group that came soon after we actually began to be a center, but not fully there. And Tom McRoberts, who was also on the edge of the group, I'd like to acknowledge. And last but not least is Doug Gilmore. who, while not here, actually staffed our very first training, and then and about a year or so later, he actually came and became a member of our community. So we cannot acknowledge early founders and pioneers without also acknowledging Doug, who I'm sorry cannot be here, but let's give him all. So, I thank you for your attention. It is now my pleasure to introduce Robert, who will be doing the next set of honoring. And hopefully I stayed within my time.
Barely. Tough crowd. All right, it's a tough crowd.
Okay, all right.